Hey everybody, it is Ryan Steller with The Briefing. I'm here with Mike Martinelli as usual, and the Super Bowl is past. We're not going to talk about football because I don't know about football anyway, and there's definitely no Eagles news. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How about you?
I'm incredible. We have an interesting update. So, anxiety is a massive problem. 1 in 3 Americans deal with some sort of mental illness. Anxiety and depression are closely related. I've had my own experiences with it, both in my personal life and friends around me, and it sucks. So there are a lot of different pathways to treatment. Personally, I think talk therapy and working stuff out with the people around you is the best one. But medications and pharmaceuticals are a big part of that. And here on the briefing, we are looking for radical change in healthcare and society through a better healthcare system. And we've studied GLP-1 medications quite a bit. So turns out there is some hope there as well, which is insane. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. We are waiting to hear more bad news, frankly, on this category of drug. But until then, it is absolutely imperative to understand how it can be used positively to improve lives and affect people. So, Mike, what did you find this week?
I just came across a study. This is just published in Epic Research last week, February 6th. And I found it through just a regular news article I was reading. And what the study shows is that they found a strong correlation between patients or between using GLP-1 medications, specifically tirzepatide and semaglutide, uh, and a statistically significant decrease in anxiety and depression symptoms in those people diagnosed with it. So this study, it's important to lay out what kind of study this is. This is a retrospective chart review, and it's a large sample size. They have uh, almost a million total patients that records that they reviewed. So this is not the type of study like when you see a new vaccine come out, you have clinical trials and there's double blinding. You don't know if you're getting a placebo or the real medication. This is different, different type of study, which is used a lot in medical and scientific research. Like I said, it's called a retrospective chart review. So it's taking patients' medical files and using information that's already there. So you're not giving them this medication specifically to look at whether or not there's an association with decreased anxiety and depression. They're looking at patients who are one. So there's two main groups they looked at: patients diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and are taking uh, semaglutide or tirzepatide for their diabetes, uh, and they also have an existing diagnosis of either anxiety or depression. So that's the first group. And the second group of patients is the same, except for they're not diagnosed with diabetes, but they're using these medications for weight, they're prescribed them for weight loss. So they wanted, it's important. They did a very good job setting the controls in this study, isolating the controls so that outside variables that we might not have thought of could have had an influence in this. So in both groups, so I'll refer to each group as the diabetic group and a non-diabetic group. They're all on GLP-1s, and they all have a diagnosis of either anxiety or depression. So they noticed a statistically significant decrease in both groups in depression symptoms. Those who are taking semaglutide or terepazide.
Turns up,
Um,
turns up, zep,
I,
zep.
yeah, I always get that word. These GLP names, their
It's a lot.
generic names are very
It's a lot.
difficult for me for some
It's
reason.
a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So which is big. It's the percentage was so Tirzep. I'll just use the nickname. they noticed that had the greatest reduction in depression symptoms in diabetic patients, and it was a 65% reduction in that group compared to the people the ones who are not taking GLP-1s. So that's big, and especially with the sample size that they're using, that's very, very notable. Um, and this in general, this topic is important and interesting to bring up because, like Ryan said, we've been covering these GLP-1s for a while, and at every month almost we're finding out there's new benefits from these GLP-1s that they're just starting to recognize and starting to study. I think a few months ago, little over a month ago, we had a episode briefing about findings that these GLP-1s had a notable, statistically significant effect on decreasing uh, anything related to addiction, like alcoholism, um, impulsive behavior, opioid addiction. So all of these benefits we just keep hearing about GLP-1s is incredible. All the things that these meds can do. So
Yeah, and then for the audience at home, there are some details about this study that are important. One, this is coming from only one lens, which is one specific electronic medical record company, and it's not confirmed in a breadth of clinical settings. And then two, it's retrospective, so it's data that came in without the intent of proving this outcome, but rather it's a correlation that was suggested by querying the data, but not necessarily confirming it. And that would be the difference between the retrospective and the prospective aspects of this. It was also not double blinded, so the people who had these responses, both arms could be affected by the placebo of receiving whatever it was, whatever the GLP drug was. And I don't think we can necessarily clarify the power of the tirzepatide over placebo alone for the anxiety endpoint, or can we?
well, this is a retrospective, and this is retrospective chart reviews are big in medicine and scientific literature and research. You don't have a placebo in retrospective studies. What would be in place of the placebo is, so they looked at in these groups of people, say with diabetes, who are being, um, I should have probably broken this down better. Of the diabetic patients, some are having their diabetes treated with GLP-1s, and others in that group are having their diabetes treated with the other medications, like the standard of care ones, like metformin and stuff. So you have two groups: one of the traditional diabetes medicines that are not GLP-1s, and then the ones who are being treated for diabetes with the GLP-1s. So um, you can make, with retrospective studies, you can make a very, and a lot of it, the power does have to do with the sample size. I can tell you exactly what the sample size of this is, like where it consists of. So I'll just read it right from the study. The data came from a collaboration of Epic Health Systems representing more than 233 million patient records from 1,325 hospitals and more than 28,900 clinics from all 50 states and Lebanon. The study was completed by two teams that worked independently, each composed of a clinician and research scientists.
Okay. Yeah, that's very compelling. And then causation wise, what do you know? Do you remember there's a litmus test in statistics to know when something is correlated versus causal. And we've talked about it before, but it might be good to pull up, or just for folks to keep in mind that the or to, I don't know, to reread this with a critical eye. Me being one of them, I should reread it. The what is the causation here? And what I'm getting at is because tirzepatide is shown to reduce fat, reduce weight, people might feel happier because their physical self-image is reflecting on their emotional self-image
That's another.
so directly. And I think that is a legitimate and desirable side effect of these drugs, but it may not be. If you were, let's say, if you were ideal, body mass or ideal like weight, fat mass. Let's say you were 11% body fat and you had some abs or something, and you had depression. If you took GLP-1s, would you still feel better, or would you not see any improvement because your fat mass is already like quite optimal and maybe perhaps as low as you can sustain in a healthy way? Did they comment on that?
That's an excellent observation, Ryan. And I don't know if it's in this study, but one of the research papers I read myself did bring that up about, people, making sure to determine whether or not the anxiety and or depression is a result of being overweight, their physical appearance, or whether it's already like a condition, like an underlying condition that they already have. So the neurochemistry is off. One really technical paper I found, and probably not going to go through it
Yeah,
today because
I don't think
it
we're
would
gonna get into.
require
Well,
you to have
just give the audience the so what about it maybe.
okay. So the reason we're not going to tell you like go in depth about this paper is the title. So if you can make
Well,
it through his
no,
title
but it's
without,
also it's in animal models, right?
it's an
It's in
yeah,
rats and not humans, and
yep,
it gets very deep into the signaling pathways, which is really
yes.
not our I mean, you actually it's more your expertise than mine, but I don't know if we could keep folks engaged, but maybe.
Yeah, definitely not. But I wouldn't either if I was sitting through a lecture with this. But this actually is the key to, looking. This is mouse models, but doing this study with humans, studying this signaling pathway is definitely a key to determining whether or not the anxiety and depression is its own condition in these patients, or it's a result of their self-image because of weight. Um, so the key to this study is that they're looking at mice, not humans, but the implications of the GLP-1 receptor, um, uh, administering an agonist, which is what these GLP-1 drugs are, and the signaling pathway in the a specific signaling pathway in the hippocampus, which has a biological effect on emotions. So there's a pathway, signaling pathway with and the neuro chemistry of it is examined in this study that they used mice. So being able to isolate that and then apply it in the human context would definitely strengthen the case made in the article that I just talked about earlier.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that. So I guess summarize. So I think that's a scientific frame of that paper. But what were the implications of it? Like what's the hope that's implied by that finding?
From the technical
Yeah,
paper.
like let me. I'll just because we dug into it a little bit. So uh, the, the title refers to it as chronic social defeat stress, which if that ain't a way to describe adolescence, I don't know. So and it's specifically on dulaglutide. You know, it says impedes depressive-like behavior. So it's a kind of very like specific and hedged scientific language about the implications. But the positive thing is it's. Do you know what the CAMP and PK signaling is? Do you know what that's?
Yeah, those are major. They're not just in the brain, but those are major receptor signaling pathways. So cyclic AMP and
Okay.
PKA, protein kinase A.
Okay.
That's involved in G protein coupled receptors.
Okay.
For any scientists out there who knows what those are.
Okay. So. Okay, interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully we'll get some sort of confirmation on that in humans, and we'll share it with folks. But at a high level, if you have been on a GLP-1 drug like Ozempic, Wegovy, tirzepatide, Mounjaro, and you've dealt with anxiety and depression, and you saw an improvement, we would love to chat with you about it. If you'd be interested in sharing your story on an episode of The Briefing, so that other people could learn from it, please either comment below on YouTube or email us directly at hello, HELLO, @standardcare.us. We would love to share more firsthand stories of this stuff. We looked for some anecdotes from TikTok and Reddit, and there are a few, but they weren't exactly what we were looking for. So we'll keep looking and share those later. But yeah, that's basically it. So incredible finding. What's incredible about this study is the size of it. Clinical trials, I think most people know, are small because they're very expensive. So dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe 10,000 people, but upwards of 1 million people is extremely rare. So that alone, I think, is like a really dramatic and positive dimension to this update. So that's a great find. And Epic, if anybody's familiar, there's a duopoly or monopoly or oligopoly of electronic medical records in the world, and Epic is one of the largest ones. So they're basically leveraging their footprint of hospitals that they're installed in to run these searches like across a big database and get these findings. So you may accidentally, if you were a patient with charts in Epic, you may have inadvertently been in this study without knowing your data was going into it, but it's for a good cause and a good study, so that's positive. So they have confidence interval. Oh, this is good. This is the data. Non-diabetic patients, semaglutide, liraglutide. So liraglutide was the best, or
was the worst.
Was the worst. Okay. So tirzepatide is the best. Okay. Interesting. So this is roughly correlated with, because liraglutide is an older version of one of these drugs, and oftentimes if you're trying to get semaglutide or tirzepatide, you will have to fail treatment on liraglutide. And interesting. So and to me, this kind of implies that maybe weight loss is correlated, because this is roughly the same. It's roughly linear with, or like correlated with, effectiveness for weight loss as well. Because like liraglutide, I think is we'd have to pull up a study to quote it correctly, but the amount of excess body fat lost in the liraglutide studies was, I think, half or maybe a third of tirzepatide. So anyway, super fascinating. Mike, any closing comments before we wrap up?
No, I think I covered it all pretty thoroughly.
Right on. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you saw this. Leave a comment or question below. And if you're interested in getting in touch, please email us at hello@standardcare.us, or check out our AI, which is designed to help people access these drugs and find a clinic that is qualified to manage them. And that's it. Thanks. Have an awesome